Hello, my favorite crafters. It's Tammy, and I hope you're having a beautiful day. A very warm welcome to all of you. Today we're going to make a journal. This is a little garden fairy journal. It was inspired by a tattered quilt, this sweet little fairy image, and because making a journal I think is one of the most relaxing ways to be creative. If you haven't tried it before, I invite you to stick around for the process. It's really enjoyable. And best of all, you probably have just about everything you need to make one. So, disclaimer, I'm not a journal making guru. I just love making them. And I learned all my journal making skills from the brilliant journal making women in the YouTube community. So let's start with a walkthrough so I can show you what this is all about, and then I'm going to show you how to make a journal of your very own. This little journal is approximately 3 inches by 5 inches, and we're going to be making it today from a brown paper bag. We're going to cover that with a little scrap of fabric there, and in the inside of our book, the inside cover, I'm going to be using some old book pages. We'll talk a little bit about all the different options of everything that you can make your journal out of. This particular little journal has one signature, and this is the signature right here, my little group of pages. Some of the bigger journals will have several of these, but we're starting simple today with just one. We are going to stitch this in with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. And I used coffee dye paper for this, but there's so many options, so we'll talk about that too. And this is basically, I would call it a naked journal, since you can take all your pages here and do as you wish. So it's a little empty journal instead of there being a lot going on. I did add a couple little things. We'll talk about that as we move on through making our journal, but that's basically it, you guys. Now everything you see on top are all the bells and whistles, and I used I have an old quilt, I'll tell you about that, and I used some pieces off that. I used this gorgeous little fairy, I'll tell you where to get her. I used lots of vintage lace here and little flowers, and kind of stacked up some pretty laces and more of that quilt on the back. So that's really the fun part when we get to start doing all that decorating after we construct our journal. So let me gather up the goods because we got a journal to make. All right, to construct our journal, let's begin with 2 simple little paper bags. These are just 2 little lunch bags. Grab something to protect your work surface. I'm going to be using my Scotch Create glue stick here. And we are going to just cover this lunch sack here with this gusset right here on my left side and facing up. And we're just going to cover this with a nice even coat of glue stick all the way down. Make sure you get all your edges. Okay, good and sticky. Let's take our second bag. Here we have this gusset side. Let's flip it. So they're basically, these gussets are on each side. Let's lay this right on top. Line it up the best you can. All right, like so. Sometimes I will take my ruler, just smooth it out. Okay. Next, let's fold it in half. Once again, you can grab your ruler and get a nice little crease in there. Okay, at this point, you've got your 5 inches, like right here, going down, and we want to do our 3 inches, so you can do a couple of things here. You can mark your 3 on each side, and you can cut this with scissors if you like. Usually what I like to do, I'll just pull out a little cutting mat that I have and just square this up and line it up with 3 inches right here. Grab a little cutting knife, razor knife, and just trim away this one side. Make sure you really hold pressure down on this ruler so you don't slide. There's a lot of layers here, but there we go. Okay. And here is the beginning of our journal. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to leave this down, I think, just so we have something to protect us. I've got a scrap of fabric here. Okay. It's all kind of wrinkly and shabby chicy, but that's just the way I like it. So this is basically going to be the cover of our journal. So any little scrap of fabric that you have, I know the fabric store, Walmart, they sell like the fat quarters. So it's like that's a quarter yard of fabric. A lot of people on Etsy sell small amounts as well. If you don't want to get giant amounts of fabric, you know, the she who dies with the most fabric wins kind of thing. That is, I'm definitely in contention for that award. Okay, so what I'm going for here is, when I lay this here, I kind of want an inch all around all sides. So these two sides look good. Let me just do a little snip here, and I'll get rid of that excess right there. Lay this back down. And I need to trim a little bit off here. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of fabric, that's for sure. It's just easy to get addicted to buying fabric. That's so beautiful. Okay, let's see. There. I even save all those little strips. Okay, so if we lay this down in the center, we have some good amount of fabric here to go around and wrap the top of our journal. I'm going to go ahead and continue to use my glue stick. You can use your Fabrifix glue here if you like. We're going to use that in a minute, but I found that just kind of doing this for me wasn't quite as messy. So you can do what works for you. You're going to put glue on all four corners and then take your corners and fold them in. Just fold them in on your glue, like so. When you tear your fabric, you get a lot of strings. And then they stick to your fingers with all the glue. All right, so there's our four corners. Let's go to the Fabrifix glue. That's what we're going to be using next. I made a mistake here. I opened this up too big. It pours out like crazy. So I have it in a little bottle here, much easier to work with, and I have a tinier hole. Okay, so let's taking our glue. Let's just glue this up all the way across here, and this folds right over like so. Okay, let's go to the opposite side. Do the same thing. You can take, and at this point you can fold it like so, like this. You get a nice sharp edge. Keep some of that glue off your fingers. Okay, and let's do this one here. Let's fold it like that. That was a nice technique. Like that. And our last one right here. There we go. Push that down. Okay. So what we've done here is we've actually have the makings of the beginning of a cover for our journal. Okay. Now we just need the inside to look as nice as the outside. Let me just trim a few of these strings off. Like I said, when you rip your fabric, you get a little stringy. Okay. All right. So for inside of my book, now you can put any kind of old paper, old book pages, sheet music, whatever you like for the inside of your cover. Okay. I was going for a walk one day, and there was some curb trash out, and there was some books. This was one of them. There was a whole bunch of these. The trash truck was coming. I heard him. He was 5 minutes away, and I had to grab books, and I had to get them quick. So I grabbed a lot of books, what I could carry to get home. I loved this one, and I took one and cut it. I'll cut all the pages out so I can use it as my go-to for when I'm journaling or you know, whenever I need an old book page. This is just full of wonderful things, and I was looking for things that would go kind of a little bit of a garden theme in here. There's some holiday stuff. There's just so many beautiful things, and I found this. It was this bird and these flowers, and I thought this page would be beautiful for this journal. So what I'm going to do, because this book page kind of fits really good, is I want to cover the whole inside of the book. Now, most of the time what I'll do is I might have like this picture I like, and I'll cut it where it'll just fit maybe this side, and I'll have something else, say, on this side. Oh, look at this, you guys, with the little bird. Now I don't know what I want to use. Oh my, this is so pretty with a robin. Okay, I may just cut this in half and use one for one project and use this for this project. I'm loving this. Okay, so I'm gonna go here and look at this. Wait, let me get my robin on here. I want my robin to fit. Let me just make a little mark where I need to cut this. Maybe right here. So how about I lay the ruler on here like so. I'm gonna make sure I'm kind of straight. A little bit of a line right there. And I'm just going to rip this. Okay. And let's kind of lay this here and see what we got. Okay, this looks good, but it's still a little big, so I need a little bit off of this side. You just kind of mark it, and I'm fitting this in where some of that beautiful fabric will show through. We kind of want that to show through. We don't want to, see if I can just eyeball this kind of straight here. We don't want to cover all that fabric up. Okay, we're on a roll. Here we go. This is fitting really pretty, and we just have a little bit extra on the bottom here. So just kind of mark where we're going with that. And I'm just going to tear this off. Now you could cut this with scissors, something really straight, whatever you like. And like I said, you can definitely just cut out one side and put it here, and maybe you have something else that you wanted to cut and put here, and just kind of leave your spine open. Doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. But see how cute? Look at how nice that fits. For this journal, I'm just going to use the whole thing. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I thought it worked out okay. So I'm going to grab my Fabrifix glue for this. And just glue. Just glue the whole thing up. And then let's just lay it right in place. Just like that. Okay. We want to get our spine back, so let's do our fold. Once again. Isn't that beautiful? And you know, I could have inked up these edges too. That would have been super pretty. All right, so there is the beginning of our book. So the next step is we're going to make our pages or our signature, and we are going to stitch them in right here in the center. Okay, let's bring in some paper. This is a true junk journal, you guys. We're just using little junk from around the house. For paper, Now, the sky's the limit here, but since we're just kind of learning technique today, I'm not going to go into like how advanced we could get with all of our paper options. But if you got some notebook paper, this is just some paper from my printer that I coffee dyed. This is just plain printer paper. You can ink up your edges. All of this works perfectly fine. This paper here, I found this on Amazon, and it's like to look like aged paper, even though it's not. And I thought this would just be a good one to use today, just so we can just see the technique. So to make our pages, just going to fold a piece of paper in half. I'm just going to kind of show you an example. So, it doesn't take like an hour here to do our pages. And let me just cut this in half, since we're working on a smaller journal here. And as you can see, I'm just going to pop this one in here. I would cut 8 of these. Now, for every piece of paper you have, you get 4 pages. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see just with the 2 sheets of paper, we've got 8 pages. So I'm going to use like 8 of these, and this journal would have 32 pages. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'll lay my journal out, kind of flip this right in here and see where I'm at, and maybe kind of want my pages maybe to be right here. Make a little line. Grab your ruler and kind of square it up here. You guys see that okay? Here we go. And I'll take my razor and knife and just do a little cut. And this is how I'm going to start forming my pages or my signature. Lay that in there. Maybe I like that here, and I'm just going to basically do the same thing. So try to get that as straight as possible. You can completely get your ruler out and measure everything. I just found when I'm journaling, I just eyeball it and just relax and enjoy the process. And now that would lay in there like so. Now I have one that I made. This is 8 pages here, so I have 32 all together when we flip through. And remember that piece that was on top of this robin when I couldn't decide what to do? Well, here it is, and I'm going to put that right there and use it as our signature cover. So that will lay in like that when you open the book. All right, here, let me move some of this out of the way so we can move on to stitching our signature into place. Let's take our journal, lay this in exactly where we want it. Spines are all lined up right there. Let's grab some paper clips and hold everything in place. So nothing's going to slide around on us. I may be going overboard with 4, but I don't want anything moving. Okay, and then this is out of the toolbox, a little awl, just to poke some holes. We're going to use that. I'm just going to take my pencil, and I'm not going to get crazy with any kind of measuring. I'm just going to mark myself 3 holes, 1 in the middle and 1 in the top, 1 at the bottom. Taking the awl, I'm just going to press this down in here and poke it right through. I'm going to come through a little bit just so I know I'm through that fabric. It'll just make it easier from where we're putting our needle through. And I'm going to do that here at the top and here at the bottom. Now I do have one of those fancy crocodile hole punchers, but today it's about the basics. Using what you got. Okay, now we got our holes. I'm going to use a simple 6-strand embroidery thread. Get something strong. This is pretty strong. I like the way this works. Measuring it out 1, 2, 3 times, and I'll add a little bit more. Okay. This is just a big fat like darning needle. It's not even really sharp, but I find that this works pretty good. to pull this embroidery floss through. And I chose pink, kind of goes with the color of that fabric. All right, we're going to start in the center, and we're just going to push this through. Okay, let's leave a nice little tail there. Okay, and then we are going to come up here at the top. Let me find my hole. Right. Just come up through there. This is a really fat needle. Okay, pulling it right through. You can see how pretty that looks on the back, our stitches. Okay, let's take and go down this bottom hole. This is our 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I'm going to pull that all the way through. Let's see. Now we're going to come back up the center. And what you want to do here when you come back up is this little tail is on this side of the string. Let's bring up the second tail on this side of the string, of our center string. So your string's running down the middle, and you have your 2 tails right there. And let's tie them off. Okay, that's pretty easy, right? Okay, do 2. And then I try to do one the opposite way. I gotta tell you, I've never been good at the opposite way. I don't know why. Something about it confuses me. I don't know what it is. Okay, we'll do that right there. And I like to leave some little tails. They just look really cute in the center since you stitched your journal. Let's take the paper clips off. Look at that with the stitches. Isn't that cute? And there you go. With that extra little piece in there, that's kind of our little signature cover. So this is one signature. Now, like I said, when you're making the bigger journals, you would do the same thing here. And, you know, like 3 or 4 of them are in these journals, but each one is their own little thing. So you see, you guys, how simple that was just to put the basics together for a simple little paper bag journal. But let's start embellishing this a little bit and decorating it and making it beautiful. All right, I pulled out some good stuff, so let's decorate. I told you I had a old quilt, and it's very tattered and it's very old. And what I did was I chomped off a chunk of it, and I'm going to glue it to the front of my journal. I'm going to let a little bit of that calico fabric show through. And so let me just cut off a piece here. So this old quilt, I found this quilt in the 80s. And it was a time when, you know, the country decorating was just really kicking in and became really popular. And people were buying these old quilts for next to nothing and making teddy bears and bunnies and things like that. And so I've been carting this quilt around with me for like 40 years and using these little pieces. I would never take a beautiful antique quilt and cut it up, you guys. I just wanted to put that out there so you know I'm not cutting up something gorgeous. But as you can see, this thing has seen better days. This is super old. I know it's the old flour sack fabric and everything. But yeah, that was just a different time, that crafting time in the 80s. I know 2 of my subscribers, Lisa and Karen, can relate. We had talked about how we were in that crafting circuit. Okay, so I'm going to actually use here my hot glue, just because, you know, we're just going to get this done quicker. But, you know, you can totally use your Fabrifix. I would probably recommend that over the hot glue. But, you know, let's just get some instant gratification here and get this thing going. Okay, so just layering things on here, like so. Now, you may not have an old quilt. I have another thought for you. Here's another little journal I was putting together. This one, I actually used the white paper from my copier and my printer, and I tore the edges, and I used the pink distress ink on the edges, and I think it turned out really pretty. So this is an old doily from a flea market, and you can wrap something like that on there. Scraps of floral fabric can go on there. This is, you can put your little fairy on here as well. this is, oh, here, before I show you where I got the fairy. Now, I know a lot of you have my bunny sheet, and I've been trying to use my bunny for different things, so you have different ideas, but the bunny is super cute on here as well. And, you know, you could add little buttons, you can add rickrack, you could just keep layering it up. I have my, my alphabet stamps here and a scrap of muslin, and I had spelled out Garden Fairy, but here, let me just stamp on the muslin, garden. And with Mr. Bunny, I think he would look super cute if you were doing a little garden themed journal. Put that on there, you know, add all your little bells and whistles to that. You know, that's just super, super cute. So those are some ideas. So just think about what you have and start layering things on, leaving that little leaving whatever fabric you choose to kind of poke out of there. It's always cute. Okay, so back to the fairy over here. Also, this is the image that came from Etsy, and it is a digital download from Vintage Digital Shop 2. I'll link that shop below. So it's a little fairy with the birds, and even taking this and using it on the front of your journal and wrapping it in some antique lace. I mean, that's just really, really sweet. So that is the image, and what I did here was just, I printed out an extra one so I could print out my fairy that I put on this journal. Okay, so that's where you can get that. And this is another scrap of quilt, and I sewed a piece of muslin on it and stamped Garden Fairy on there with my stamps. I'm going to take a little bouquet of forget-me-not flowers here and get my cutters out. What I did was just, I glued these down first, like so, and then over the top, I just glued down my little Garden Fairy stamp here. So these little flowers peeking out, and took my little fairy. And let's just put a little glue on her real quick. There she is right there. Isn't that cute? Where did that little button go? I liked that little button I had. Here it is. I just took the pink embroidery thread and stuck it through that button and made it look like it was sewed on. Just put it right here. How cute is that? Okay. And then this is just some vintage lace, which, you know, why not? Let's just put a little thing of glue right here and lay that on. Just another layer. I just love all the layers of this little journal. It just took a simple little journal and made it really special. And then on the back, look at this lace here. Isn't that pretty? And what I did here, let me just, I'll put a little glue on here. Okay. And the way that pokes out, how pretty that looks, like on the other side, the way that's poking out. Isn't that sweet? And then I had another scrap of quilt. That will go right there on the back and look adorable. We'll lay that right on there. You can just keep layering things on. This is a scrap of fabric that has a little tiny rosebud on it. Things like that. Like I said, I would recommend using the Fabrifix glue for this part. But we're just trying to give you some ideas here. How sweet, right? Isn't that just absolutely adorable? Now, this one here, I like when I do my journals, I love when they're all just filled with stuff and they're all just thick and gorgeous. This ribbon here was a flea market find. Isn't that beautiful? Came to me like this on this card. I love the color. And so what I did inside of here was I had another scrap of that quilt and I glued it on 3 sides and made a pocket, and in it I just tucked a little vintage advertising card. And for the signature in here, I actually made this out of index cards. You can see there's the lines and then the blank side. there's that little fairy. I made it into a smaller tag there. And here I just took and rubber stamped onto some floral fabric, and there's some lace there. I took a pink paper clip, tied some roughly tulle around the paper clip with a little rose, so that sticks out on the top. I like the way that looks. And then on the back, once again, glued 3 sides, made a pocket, stuck another little vintage advertising card in there as well. And on the back, there's some more of that quilt. And isn't that just an adorable little journal? And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. And I hope that you got some basic knowledge too, so you can make a journal. And the sky is the limit here, you know, as far as themes for making your journals. And it's just very, very creative. And once you get started, it's like you just keep, you know, getting more and more creative. So if you like this and you are ready to advance to another level, I suggest putting in the search box on YouTube, junk journals, and you're going to see some of these journals that these ladies make that will blow you out of the water. They are so amazing and so inspirational. So thank you guys for crafting with me today, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.